Welcome, everybody. I'm Jill Jonathan with Red Wine and Blue, and we are a community of women who use digital media and friend-to-friend organizing to change the world one suburb at a time. And one way we do this is through conversation, because we've got to talk about the things going on in our communities. And it's pretty sad, honestly, some of the things that are happening. So today I've got three lovely women from Pennsylvania talking about the Pennridge School District. We labeled this more extreme than Florida, if you can believe that. So they will get into it, tell us a little bit more. I think a lot of us have been paying attention about what's going on with school districts, school boards. I know personally the schools that my kids go to were having some issues in the school boards as well. So we just want to talk about what's going on, what people are doing to fight back, and what you can do. So first, I'll welcome, we have Kim, Adrian, and Laura. Kim works for Red Wine and Blue as well. So Kim, I'll just have it, throw it over to you first. Just tell us a little bit about what you do at Red Wine and Blue, and then how you invited Adrian and Laura from the Pennridge School District to join us.
Yeah, so I'm the Deputy Program Director for the state of Pennsylvania. I happen to live in Bucks County, and I am in a school district that's in basically a cohort school district with Pennridge and also Quakertown. So what happens in Pennridge, it really is impactful to not just the cohort schools, but to the entire state. Everyone's really familiar with Central Bucks and the happenings there, in part because they're one of the largest top 3 school districts in the state. What's happening in some of these smaller districts is equally important. And I wanted to shine a light on that, and knew of the work that Adrian and Laura have done as part of the Ridge Network. Because really, being the state that has the second highest number of Moms for Liberty chapters, things in Pennridge are really, really gone beyond what people have known, even as an extremist agenda in public schools. And they're really fighting hard over there on all fronts. And I really just wanted Laura and Adrian to help shine a light on what's happening there, because it will be expanding out through the state. I hear every day how the folks out in Western PA look towards these Eastern schools as models for how they want to implement some of their extremist agenda. So I wanted to, shine a light on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go over to you, Adrian, next. If you could just give us just a little bit about who you are and why this is important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for having myself and Laura today on the program. So my name is Adrian King. I live in Pennridge School District. My family and I have lived in this school district since 2007. Why is this important to us? We have 2 daughters that are in the Pennridge School District in elementary school right now. One will be going into middle school next year. And so certainly the environment in which they are learning and spending a lot of their time in is very important to us, and the impact of that on them, as well as what they're learning. And as we've seen with some of the issues that have popped up in our school district, we're now starting to see where our school board decisions, their policies that they're making, are actually impacting the students, the environment, the schools, the teachers, the administration. And some of the things that are happening are just so extreme and so anti anything that is not, their way of thinking, that it certainly is a concern, a continued concern to us, right? So as I said, we've lived in the school district for a while. 2 cycles ago, as one of my efforts to try to combat what was going on, I decided to run for school board. I did not, win a seat on the school board, but that did not stop me or my efforts from trying to impact and improve what was going on in our school district. And so I've turned my attention to really trying to support the people that are directly impacted by the things that are going on, as well as still trying to affect change in the school board, and just letting the community know. What I found out over the last couple of years is a lot of people just don't know. A lot of people just are not connected into what your school boards are doing. They don't know what the school boards are supposed to be doing, yet alone what they're actually doing, right? And so, the more we can start to elevate these issues right here within Pennridge, it's going to alert our community to what's going on. But then also to the point that you both have made, is these things are not just going to stay here in Pennridge.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard it in surrounding school districts, and we've heard it across Pennsylvania. And so we certainly want to do our part in helping to inform other school districts as well. So thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And then Laura, what about you? Why is this important to you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you guys for doing this. It's a really important conversation that is popping up more and more, not just in like Pennridge, but I think nationally. And so I think to really kind of dig into what this is and how it's not just impacting Pennridge, but it really is a part of a national agenda, is a really important conversation, because we're not alone here. There's lots of other, not just school districts, but counties and states that are dealing with this. Unfortunately, we are, I would say, arguably the most extremist school board in the entire United States right now. So we're the model. And I think that we're very fortunate that we have folks in our community that are really taking a stand and standing up for the rights of the children, the students, and the teachers. Primarily this impacts the LGBTQ plus children and the families of color. The Black and brown families in our district are the ones that are most impacted by the discriminatory practices that are occurring. So yeah, I mean, I'm Pennridge through and through. I graduated from Pennridge in 1993. I somehow have ended up back in this area. So about 4 years ago, we moved back to this area, and I have 3 children in the district. One just graduated. There's some deep ties, for not just myself, but for a lot of people that care about this school. I'm a therapist. I practice in this county. I have a fellowship through Children First to work on the mental health of the LGBTQ plus children in our district. And personally, when I see the things that my children have experienced, I have a child that is queer, and it hurts your heart, right? And I know that it's not just my kid, right? That this is lining up to impact so many children. And when you have conversations with them and you hear the parents talk, I mean, you can listen to any Pennridge school board meeting and hear parents talk about the difficulties that their kids have been facing. And our board has no interest in acknowledging that or holding a space of safeness or love for these kids. We have to do it, right? So we are at a place where we're almost kind of like on a precipice, right? Where there's so many families that have been impacted by this, that you got to move forward with it. Like, you have to do something to try to impact change, because otherwise it's just going to snowball and become bigger and bigger and bigger. So yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about it.
As it has, Laura, as it has snowballed and gotten bigger and bigger.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, that's a great segue, because I want to talk about the most recent thing. And let's just talk about Vermilion, if I'm saying that correctly. And if one of you wants to jump in and tell what does that mean? What is that word? And how is that being brought to Pennridge, and what is the community saying?
Adrian, I know you have a lot to say about this. I'm just going to say, like, it's almost so big. It's like, where do you start? Because there's like these like kind of high level space of Vermilion. So we can talk about Vermilion as a child of Hillsdale College. So you got to go back to Hillsdale College, and now you're getting into kind of some national politics. But we should start there, because that's how this stuff kind of came about. So Hillsdale College is a very conservative Christian college in the Midwest, the president of which is Larry Arnn. So Larry Arnn has gotten into trouble by the Department of Education for not following practices along the lines of being discriminatory in terms of admitting students of color, and has made some extremely racist comments I believe his comment was as a response to that investigation by the state. He's like, we don't have enough of the dark ones, is what he had said, right? So we see like the space. This is what he says publicly. So what's going on privately? This is a very well constructed agenda from Hillsdale College to spread out Christian fundamentalism through our schools. So they started a charter school branch, and then they started Vermilion, right? So Vermilion, the head of Vermilion is a gentleman by the name of Jordan Adams. That is the consulting firm which our school decided to contract with. So Jordan Adams is deeply, deeply tied to Hillsdale. You can't say Vermilion without thinking of Hillsdale. He came from Hillsdale. There's tons and tons of ties for him and his wife, from kind of coming up through this system, right? And not only are they coming up through this system, but they are building out a platform to try to institute their Christian fundamentalist beliefs, which do translate into homophobia, into racism, into the public schools. So Vermilion gets started a couple months ago, right? Very, very new company, no background. Jordan Adams, I mean, you can go through his resume is, Jordan Adams has, a couple years of teaching at a private charter school, one of these Hillsdale schools, right? 5 years maybe.
Lara, didn't they discover at the last Pennridge meeting that he does not even have the minimum for curriculum and teaching experience in public schools to write curriculum per the PADOE, right? The Department of Education. Is that right?
That is absolutely correct. So you can see that this isn't about anything in terms of advising curriculum for Pennridge, because this isn't what this is about. This is about instituting their religious fundamentalist beliefs into a public school. It is completely what this is about. And if you can argue that, it's fiscally responsible, all this other stuff, but the core of it is trying to pull the rights away from these children and from the families, right? This is the core of it. Adrian, you want to hop in and kind of continue with the story? I won't stop talking about it.
She won't stop. She'll keep going. But she did a good job of laying the foundation. So I'll add on, just that, to your point about just sort of pushing in what they already have, and their the way of thinking of Hillsdale College and this Christian fundamentalist way of thinking was evident in the presentation that Jordan Adams made at the school board meeting. You could tell through his conversation and through his recommendations that wasn't an in-depth assessment of Pennridge. Because if it was an in-depth look at Pennridge, he would have not made some of the recommendations that he did make, as far as recommending, books and things that were already a part of students' curriculum based on age appropriate and leveling, later on. But you could tell that what he presented was already a baked cake. Probably something that he had presented at another school, maybe the one in Sarasota where they rejected him, and then just brought that over and inserted it into Pennridge. And some of the things that he was focused on in that assessment was, looking at getting books out of the schools that they have determined, are not appropriate, right? Sexually explicit, books that should not be in the schools, recommendations from a curriculum perspective that were not age appropriate for, I think it was first graders, right? Looking to really put some higher level history into the curriculum of first graders, and some other things like that. So listening to that presentation, we could have been sitting in any auditorium, any school district, right? And that would have been the presentation that we would have heard or we would have seen. And so right now, I think he has not displayed the benefit of having him in our school district. Definitely our curriculum supervisors that were there in the room were immediately able to pick up on some of these things and respond to them on the spot, right? From an intelligent, very informed position of the students here and of the school district here and what our curriculum, already has in it and how it's built out, making recommendations that were able to counter some of the things that Jordan Adams was recommending for our school district.
And I think it's important to note too that originally, the content of what they just, they're selling here through Vermilion is one thing. It's also the process with which they bring it to your district. Mm-hmm. So originally, all of the contract comes with a very broad scope. No great definition of exactly what services Vermilion was going to provide. So it can go from curriculum to sitting in on hiring and mentoring teachers. There's just no scope of the contract. And essentially it's a blank check. There's no limits. There's no definition to the contract. It was posted 48 hours barely before the meeting to approve the contract, with not all of the school board members having notice that this contract was, they had no foresight to look into the contract at all, basically, before it came up. And then it was almost coupled with, very quickly after that introduction, the possibility of letting go of the district's 4 curriculum supervisors. Now, after the presentation of Vermilion that Adrian referenced, which was really very elementary and not age appropriate, they tabled letting go of those curriculum supervisors. Now, tabled. That's pretty strong. They're not saying we're not going to do it. They're saying we're not going to address it right now. And some of that, I think, was in response to the community uprising that took place at those meetings and everyone speaking out, the teachers coming together also, and as Adrian said, being able to respond so quickly and intelligently, and showing that they are the experts. So a lot of it, the agenda, what they want to implement is extreme. The way they do it is very, very not at all transparent, which for a group that is seeking transparency and really campaigns on that, it's sneaky and it's not welcome, and it really dismantles and erodes a community from the inside out. It's horrible watching what's been happening in Pennridge. Horrible.
Yeah, can I just add to that? Because I think you're speaking to something that has happened in our district and you see happening in neighboring districts, and I'm sure in other school boards that are controlled primarily by school board members who affiliate with Moms for Liberty. So some of the things that Adrian was talking about, like what Jordan Adams did, are talking about book recommendations, like to pull out something that he considers sexually explicit. What he's pulling out is books that talk about child abuse. So it's a space where they are trying to limit the access to stories about mental health struggles, about child abuse, because they feel that that's inappropriate, right? Because there's some weird world that they live in where these things don't happen. There's such a deep misunderstanding of how someone can access mental health services. Books are an amazing way to do that, right? Like you read a story, you hear someone talking about grooming a child and you're like, that's me, like, or that's my sister, or that's my brother, it's a different way to kind of open up that dialogue, and they're trying to tamp down this dialogue. And when you look at the kind of national playbook with this is very purposeful. You go on like Moms for Liberty's websites and things that they talk about and agenda items is pulling out of the school's social emotional learning, right? So that's what this is that we are going to cut out all supports. Now, mind you, our school district, like many others, when these topics come up, have this complete wraparound system with the guidance counselors, with the social workers. When books like this are introduced, it's not just like, hey, read this, figure it out on your own. It's like, read this, and we're going to have a guidance counselor come in and kind of talk about this. And I'll kind of put eyes on these kids and see what the struggles are. Our school does a really good job of it. So they're just like completely want to pull this out. When you look at the book banning, you got to look at Moms for Liberty, because Moms for Liberty will put out lists of books to ban. Guess what books are banned in Pennridge? Same ones, right? Guess what books are getting banned in Central Bucks? Same ones, right? This is a national dialogue. These are national issues that they are kind of coming into school boards to limit the education of our children, right? And when you're talking about like paving a path, you're not talking just about the lack of transparency, the lack of fiscal responsibility. It's not just that. They have purposefully, for over a year, put into place policies that make it more and more difficult for anyone to do anything about this because it goes against the policy. Teachers can't advocate, no advocacy at all in Pennridge. So that means if you have a child that is in your class that is LGBTQ plus and you want to signal to this kid, like, it's okay here. Like, you can talk about things. We can read this book here. You can't put up a rainbow flag anywhere in the whole school, right? This is the atrocities. They put up policies around reading books out that are completely vague, and they just will group a whole bunch of books together under facilities and say, we're getting rid of these 19 boxes of books. They're not usable anymore. No reasons why. Are they in poor condition? Or is it because you don't like Toni Morrison, right? So it's all this like kind of secretive stuff. And we know over and over again that the parents and the community leaders are coming together and looking through this and being like, yeah, this is our school board member. Ricky Chaikin recommended for this book to be pulled out. That's what's happening. Guess who's a part of Moms for Liberty? These are the school board members, right? And if anyone needs to deep dive into Moms for Liberty, I'm trusting that Kim or Adrian can kind of help dig into it. It's been a big thing. And of course, Jordan Adams was a key speaker at the Moms for Liberty conference this past weekend, right? It's all tied together.
And I think it's important too to say, like, this isn't something that all of a sudden just started happening. Mm-hmm. We can tie some of this back down to 2020, right? Maybe even before that, right? When we think about some of what happened during 2020, during COVID, with reopen bucks and masking versus not following, the recommendations of the experts, and the voices, right, that were feeding into some of that conversation. They're the same voices that are pushing what we're seeing now, right? When you hear Laura talk about their attack on SEL, well, now they're equating SEL to critical race theory, which they're equating just to basic diversity, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, which are basic for most teachers in most schools, right? But it's in Pennridge, we've officially, from a school board perspective, have eliminated those initiatives because they've made the school district so anti to anything that fits under the diversity, equity, and inclusion umbrella. And so you start to see some of those linkages and the light bulbs start to come on. This isn't just something that started in 2023. This is something that's been working a plan, right? And now we're just now starting to see the outcomes of that, getting louder and getting bigger. I remember having some of these conversations with teachers and administrators around when they were, pulling out the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And it was, I know this is going on, but this is at the building level, we can still handle this, right? We can still mitigate this and make sure that it's not impacting the student. But now what we're starting to see is those policies that are getting implemented, where now it's going down, where those are being implemented in the building, right? So whether the policy says you can or can't do something, you may also just have teachers who are not doing certain things because they don't want the negative visibility, or they don't want to be attacked, or they don't want to be targeted, right, by the school board or by some people in the community.
Yeah. It feels like we're just kind of like on the precipice of a volcano, right? Like there's these things that have been building, and you could picture in the bottom of the lava, like Moms for Liberty. I mean, you go back to like Steve Bannon talking about the way to infiltrate is go through the school board. It's like, this is a long running game that's been playing, right?
And it's well-funded, and it's well-funded. And it is supported by all sorts of outside organizations, the Heritage Foundation, Independence Law Center, folks who are lawyers and high-powered. This isn't some grassroots moms event that they'd like you to think. It is a very political and politicized agenda. And one of the things I did want to mention before we have to jump is the impact it's having not just on your kids, which of course are the most important part, but the impact it's having on your teachers. I mean, we're looking at a situation in Pennridge where they're having a flight problem. They're going to now, coming up on this next year, I think I try and keep on top of it in chat, ladies, but like I've lost count. I've lost count of the number of teachers, administrators, and everything, including a superintendent, who will now need to be replaced. And Moms for Liberty will get to choose the next leadership of this district. And that's the purpose, right? When you want to dismantle something and rebuild it in your own image, you have to take out the leadership. And they've managed to do that in Pennridge, albeit under the guise of your superintendent retiring. I might retire if I were facing this too. So you can't blame the administration or the teachers. They're working in the most stressful environment I can't even imagine, where they can't serve the kids that they're there to work with. It's horrible. And so now the question is, how far is this going to go? And how, in the hopes that it turns around in November, right? They're going to have to undo everything. And it's a decade of instability for students. A decade.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I mean, it is like heartbreaking, because the reason why so many of us stay in this district is because of the teachers. And to know that so many amazing teachers are leaving, not just because of all this crap with Vermilion and Hillsdale, but because of the teacher's contract, which is another place that Vermilion can come in and, be a part of contract negotiations, is that they are kind of like pushing their salaries up. They're already like one of the lowest paid in the county, right? And now they're like kind of stalling on negotiations, and teachers see this and they see neighboring districts where they can get paid $15,000 more a year for the same thing, probably less work. I mean, you can go online and find like all of this information. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But something to know is that this too, like Kim said, is purposeful. Larry Arnn was quoted a while ago talking about the Hillsdale charter schools, which I believe is what they're trying to make Pennridge, is a Hillsdale charter school. So he has said, we're not worried about teachers leaving. We'll just fill them with Hillsdale graduates. So guess who's sitting on all our interviews? Moms for Liberty board member. Yep. So we got our board sitting in on these interviews, making these decisions, right? So I would like to, I have a million other things to say, but definitely something to put out there is that the group that Adrian and I and an amazing woman, Lauren Bradley, who couldn't make it here, who's not here today, run, is called Ridge Network. And part of what we do is to try to help families in these situations, right? So if you're going through a tough time at this school because your kid is being discriminated against, we will do our best to help you. Like, we are in it. We're in it not just for our kids, but for all the kids. So if something's going on and you're like, this doesn't sound legal, guess what? It's probably not legal, because our school has blatantly passed illegal policies, like the bathroom policies, where trans kids have to out themselves to use the bathroom. It's illegal. The board knows it. The solicitor said it. Education Law Center said it. So you're feeling some kind of way about this and you want to get involved, reach out to us, because we're here to help. And I have to say also that when Adrian introduced herself, she did a disservice to the amount of work that she does in this community. Adrian is a powerhouse, and I say this, Adrian, all the time. You're like the spider in the web of getting everything connected, And so know that there are incredible resources that we have in our pockets, and a lot of people that care and love, these families and all of the students here. And we're definitely here to help.
Yeah, thanks, Laura, for that. And Jill, we'd spoken before. I don't even remember how long ago it was, but about my nonprofit organization, the Parab Society. And that really, the genesis of that organization was, the experiences that my girls were having in this school district, and the response, or lack thereof, of response and action that we were getting from the school board level. I will say at the school level, they're the building principal, guidance counselor, teachers were trying to do things. But now with some of these policies that have been passed and the statements and things that have been made from the school board level, their hands are tied on some of these things now, where we have incidents where there's bullying, harassment, or discrimination going on because of race, gender, sex, ethnicity, right? And the people that work with our kids every day feel like they can't respond to it because of what we're hearing from our school board, right? And so part of what the Parent Society does is that advocacy piece and helping people to advocate for themselves. And that's the part that Laura's talking about, and really trying to provide that support to our students and really just letting people know what are your rights, right? You think about illegal policies, but then also something like book banning, right? And limiting what's in a student's environment, right? That could contribute to the environment that the student is being in being classified as a hostile environment, right? An environment in which they cannot be successful, they cannot learn, and they cannot be them best selves, right? And so really trying to educate people on those things, because a lot, you don't think about it, but wanting people to really know what they are so that you can move into action. Because what we hear a lot of is people are dealing with these things and they go down to a few options, right? I'm going to take my kid off the bus and take them out of that environment, but you shouldn't have to do that. I'm going to take my kid out of the school district so they don't have to deal with that. You shouldn't have to do that either, right? Or we're just going to deal with it because it's a good education, right? And we're just going to live inside of our four walls, right? Within our community. And we shouldn't have to do that either, right? So we want people to know that they do have support. They do have community members that are behind them and really want to help them and help their families to be the best that they can be in the best environment that they can be in.
Yeah.
And I think Jill, I'm sorry, one of the things I've seen people ask is, well, what can we do to help?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's like the biggest question we get. Well, oh my gosh, what do I do? And, as an organizer for Red, Wine, and Blue, the most important thing you can do is be in the know, right? Know what's happening at your local school board. Get involved. Show up. Because when you show up, you will find your people. And then you all together as a group will know what to do. Trust me, there are already leaders in your community likely who are doing this work. They are just either quiet because they don't have their numbers together yet, or because it's early in the process. They aren't as advanced as, the boards aren't as advanced as Pennridge is in what they're doing. So people aren't aware, but bringing and getting yourself educated to that and then sharing that wealth. You have to talk about it. Long gone are the days of we don't talk about politics and religion. That is not the case, and it is the opposite of what we want to be doing. We need to be speaking out at school board meetings, but even if you can't do that, if that's not your thing, there are so many ways you can help with groups like the Ridge Network. There's so much work to be done behind the scenes, whether it be in socials, getting word out, helping with local work that's being done in your own community.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And as I'm listening to you all talk, there are a lot of similarities in where I live too, and what's happening at my school board. And so, like we said, this is a cautionary tale. This isn't just limited to Pennridge. It is a national thing. It's like a playbook that's being played out through school districts throughout the country. And 2 years ago, when we had extremist candidates running for school board, I was like, oh my gosh, what do? I have to do something. And somebody said, well, why don't you volunteer for a campaign for candidates that you want to win? And so that was where I kind of got my start. So Kim, like you're saying, there's always a place to start. You can speak at school board meetings. You can just show up to them and listen to them. You can support candidates that have common sense ideas and different things like that. And then Laura and Adrian, the groups that you work with are just amazing. And I always say this, I'm like, we're not helpless in this. There's always something we can do. And so I just thank everybody for joining. I thank you all for sharing, because I think conversation is a part of activism. We got to keep having those conversations and keep talking about it, because you're not alone. A lot of us are going through this, and we can work together to turn it around. I really believe that.
And Ridge Network, if anybody's looking to get involved in Pennridge, they're available on Instagram, Facebook. I'm sure you guys, are you on Twitter yet? I don't know all of your socials, but reach out. There's messaging options everywhere. And if you have any questions about that whatsoever, you can also reach out to me. I'm at Kim, Kim, at redwine.blue, and I can get you to where you need to be to start showing up and lend whatever talents you have to helping stop this extremism.
Yeah. And I just mentioned real quick too, our website, redwine.blue. We have a campaign called Freedom to Parent. Kim and I are wearing t-shirts from the campaign, which are really cute, but we just share all kinds of resources because like we said, it's not just isolated in this, Pennsylvania school district, it's everywhere. And so there's more of us that want common sense and want the best things for our kids. So yeah, Adrienne, Laura, do you have anything else you want to add before we go?
If you're in the Pennridge School District, so we are on Facebook and we are on Instagram, Ridge Network. We also have an email address. Thanks to Laura for creating that. What is the email address, Laura?
Ridge Network 4, like the number 4 U, and just like the letter U. Yeah.
At gmail.com. And we're working on getting a website up and going too. And so that will be coming soon. And you'll be able to reach us and just understand and see more of what we're doing. We have a number of initiatives going on right now, a letter writing campaign that's going on. We have a survey that's circulating with over 1,600 signatures in support of all of the things that we're saying here. We are really trying to because hearing the voices of the community is so important, and everybody holds their own story and the power of their story. And so how can we help to get more stories out there, whether it be through opinion pieces in the newspaper or just helping to share those stories in other means. And also with just getting information, we've gotten a lot of information through the Right to Know policy and from the school board. And so other people might have other questions that we're not even thinking of things that we can look into. And so informing people and educating them around that policy. How do you initiate it? How do you ask for what you want to get what you need? We want to help people with that also. So those are just some of the things that we are working on, and we'll have more to come, I think, throughout the summer and heading into the school year for next year.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is, I've been trying to read some of the comments as they've been coming up, and they're so thoughtful. So thank you all for putting your thoughts out there through the comments. And there's always stuff to do. Like we can always use help. Like you're like interested, and you got some media skills, you got some like writing skills. I mean, even little things like just kind of helping to do day-to-day operation stuff. Like, we'll find something. Yeah, we absolutely love the support.
Yep. And I see the comment about voting. Yes, vote. Voting is so important. And it's so important to be informed. And I would say that's the one difference that sets Ridge Network apart from some of the other organizations is we don't care what letter is behind your last name from your registration perspective. We are about illuminating the issues in our district that are impacting our students and impacting our teachers, about making sure that all of our students have a inclusive, non-harmful environment to learn and be productive in. And so if those are things that you can get behind, we're not even thinking about politics or anything like that, then Ridge Network is the place for you.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. I feel inspired by you all. So thank you so much for giving all of us your time. I'm like taking notes for like my own school board stuff. Kim, Adrienne, Laura, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning in. This will be saved on our YouTube channel. So you can share it and you can send it to friends, watch again. And like I said, follow us at redwine.blue. We will keep you in the know and keep you inspired to keep going. So bye all. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Thank you.